Hello, I'm Isaiah Queer. Uh, Today I'm going to be presenting my final presentation on the topic of media and ideology. This topic is chapter 6 of the textbook, Media and Society. I ask you guys to give me 1 second as I try to sort out some technical issues, specifically as it relates to me sharing my screen, which has my PowerPoint presentations. So this is my first class. It's a final group presentation, Chapter 6, Media and Ideology. My name is Isaiah Queer. This class is Intro to Mass Communication, CMS 2325, W1 Summer 1. Today is Tuesday, June 7, 2025. Let's get into it, guys. So, before I begin this presentation, media and ideology, I would like to first and foremost define the key terms in this particular presentation. So, the first term is what is media? As we have learned over the course of this semester or over the course of this class, we have learned that media is a form is a form of communication channel in which people express uh, their views, their beliefs, and their knowledge about so many different things. And media can include radio and TV. Media can also include social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, or X, and so forth. And it's also important to distinguish between traditional legacy media and new media. Traditional legacy medias are TV, radio, and so forth, while new media are social media platforms and so on. To move forward, or to provide one example of what media is, when CNN, the major cable network, broadcasts their news via television and digital platforms, it allows millions of people worldwide to stay informed, all right? This shows how media can function as a form of mass communication. And moving forward, I want to talk about what is ideology. Ideology, or the concept of ideology. So, ideology has to do with a system, according to the textbook, it has to do with a system of meaning that helps define and explain the world. That's why ideology is. In other words, it entails concepts of such as worldviews, belief, system, and values. And oftentimes, when you hear or when the term ideology is mentioned, it is often used in political context, but there are several denotative meaning of the word ideology, all right? And it is important to first and foremost understand the definition of ideology before we can understand how media and ideology work. Um, so it goes beyond it goes beyond politics. Religion is considered, philosophy is also considered when we talk about ideology. And ideology also answers and asks questions relating to politics, whether it's liberal or conservative, whether it's socialist or Marxist Leninist. All right. So that explains the connotative and denotative meanings of the term ideology. But to provide one example, ideology also espouses ideas, and those who espouse or promote such ideas or certain ideas are called ideologues, or some people will call it ideologues. All right, the belief that anyone can succeed through hard work, for example, is is a major saying in the United States. All right, I want to achieve the American dream. You are going to achieve the American dream when you work hard and you put your mind to it. You are going to achieve the American dream. It is a dominant ideology that supports capitalism and individualism, even if there exists some level of systemic barriers to you achieving such a dream. So I would like to move over to my next slide, and I'm going to be talking about debates regarding the ideology of media. So when we talk about debates regarding the ideology of media, one key debate, I mean, there are several different debates, but because of time constraint, because I have 15 to 20 minutes to do this presentation, I would like to just mention a few debates that regards on ideology of the media. So one key debate regarding the ideology of media is between those who argue that the media promote the worldview of the powerful or dominant ideology. So there are in society there are two forces or there are two cultures. We have dominant culture and a non-dominant culture. So for the dominant culture, we have the elite or elitists. They are the ones that exist within the dominant culture, the rich people, the middle class. And when we talk about non-dominant culture, we are talking about minorities, people of color, women. Um, so it depends. It depends on intersectionality also when we talk about debates regarding the ideology of media. So the debates varies, right? We talk about cultural wars, us versus them, the middle class versus um, the non-middle class, the poor, and media institution can use this at their advantage. They can use these debates at their advantage to for commerce purposes or for commercial purposes. And to provide one example of how media institution can use this at their advantage for commercial purposes, we hear Fox News and MSNBC often report the same political event with different meaning and framing, all right? So they will frame some arguments for the middle class or the dominant culture or people within the dominant culture, and then they will frame some of the news reporting for people who do not belong to that group. But more often or oftentimes, all right, they usually frame and shape their news with the popular culture, the dominant culture, the middle class, the elitists, the rich and the powerful. All right. And this demonstrates how the media just not report reality, but they tend to construct their ideological narratives which align with their audience. All right. So that explains the debates regarding the ideology of the media. So moving forward, I would like to also talk about the evolution and development of ideological analysis. So when we talk about the development or the evolution of ideological analysis, we have to talk about Karl Marx. Karl Marx was a German philosopher. Even though he was a German philosopher, He is a man of many hats. I mean, during his lifetime, he wore many hats. I mean, in other words, he had a lot of responsibilities, and a lot of people call him names. He was a political theorist. He was a journalist. He was an economist. He even collaborated with his contemporary Frederick Angel to write the Communist Manifesto. So this particular evolution and development of ideological analysis can be traced back to Karl Marx. When you hear the concept of Marxism is attributed to Karl Marx, that that his political belief and ideology, and it also rooted in some level of economic theories. All right, so Karl Marx helped develop the concept of ideology, though, right? So it is also important to mention that the evolution and development of ideology can be understood through class struggles, all right? And to give one example, Stuart Hall's encoding and decoding theory also explain how audiences interpret a TV commercial differently based on their cultural background. And I, one person can see a Nike ads today as empowering, but another person will also see it as exploitative to athletes. So to move on, I would also like to discuss how news media produce and reinforce, how news media produce and reinforce ideological views. The news media is biased and political. We all know that for a fact. I cannot put my finger on the time that they were not even biased or ideological leaning. They are always been ideological leaning for a very long time now. They either progressive or conservative or even liberal. And they select the media or media institution trying to select and produce stories which promote and align with their ideological leanings. For example, CNN, MSNBC, and the Fox News of the world are either liberal or conservative, like I mentioned earlier, they're either liberal or conservative leaning, and they promote that Oxford mentality or the right forces the left political spectrum or divide. And their reportage is often focused on powerful people, the and institutions. They amplify powerful voices and powerful institutions ideology also. Uh, Also, we have political insiders pretending to be experts. That's the news media also promote political insider just because someone previously worked for the White House or worked for a think tank doesn't mean that they are experts on politics. It doesn't necessarily mean that. But these legacy media, these news media tend to promote people of such, all right? And they predominantly report on crimes, also, for example, that are committed by poor and minority individuals, which can somehow reinforce racial and class stereotypes, um, which can also promote the idea that poverty is linked to crime. And the research on I mean, they sometimes do not even research their framing of the issues. They just go about doing it because it align and amplify elitist opinions and viewpoints or worldview or ideology, as we may call it. So to move on, we're going to be talking about the underlying ideological orientation of action adventure movies and military films. Action and adventure movie for historical purposes were popular movies in the 1980s, uh, particularly so due to the 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 Cold War era, where communist countries were going against the democratic countries, and America were fighting for dominance. Um, so there was a strategy to promote um, American culture and values, that this is a great country, that is this country is a country of patriots and heroes, and that America is a utopia, or imagine America is a paradise, it's a perfect place. And these movies tend to promote the American dream, also to sell the American dream. It is all advertising, it's all marketing. America is really good at marketing himself, of branding himself. All right. So during that time, those movies promote pro-military ideologies, pro-American ideologies. And they also promote military modern patriotism and heroism. Uh, the promotion of American culture also amplifies its soft power. So America has a huge military might, but it also has a huge cultural might. She is a force for for global cultural dominations, the lack of Hollywood, the lack of sports like basketball, NBA. Those are all facets of soft power. China, for example, China doesn't have a soft power as compared to the United States. Who want to go to China for studies? Or who do want to play in Chinese sports? Or who do want to listen to Chinese music? So Chinese culture is not globally appealing when you compare it to the United States culture. Hip hop, the dressing, the swag, the cool, the nice suburban neighborhoods, those are all globally culturally appealing. So, and they use movie as a form to portray the cultural relevance, and they are globally appealing to people all around the world. Uh, for example, the film American Snappers, it glorifies U.S. military's snapper role in Iraq, and also reinforces nationalist and pro-military ideologies while simplifying the complexity of war and dehumanizing the enemy, which were the Iraqi people. Moving on to slide 8, the changes, the changing images in TV and the broader ideological shifts. So when we talk about the changing images in TV and the broader ideological shifts, we are talking about modern times. Uh, there is a form there is new marketing trends that have been adopted to diversify and include um, racial and racial minorities and other groups of minorities in terms of cultural promotion. And this was particularly relevant during the middle of the 1970s. Uh, before then, before the 1970s, TV programming used to be about predominantly white people, middle class, living happy life in nice suburban neighborhoods. However, I mean, now, those programmings are no longer. We have more diverse and inclusive representation of minority people as portrayed in TV right now. We have, for example, LGBTQ characters and interracial couples and families. Example, the film or the television program or show blackish is an perfect case example of how interracial families were portrayed. And also, we have non-traditional protagonists. For example, Alphaba in the recent show Wicked, which was played by how do you call her? She's a British girl. Her name is she's a black British girl. Her name is Cynthia Erivo. All right. And the goal of the changing images in TV to appeal to broader um, audiences is to mainly attract new and loyal audiences. And to attract new and loyal audiences is for commercial purposes. To gain new market and to gain new revenue streams. So that's why you're gonna see now the contents in TVs are mostly political correct to appeal to a broader audience or a broader group of people. Shows like Pores, shows like Pores feature LGBTQ plus characters of color in lead roles, like I mentioned earlier, which reflect a growing ideological shift toward inclusivity and intersectionality representation in mainstream media today. So moving over to my next slide, the ways advertisement reflect, reinforce, produce, and elevate ideologies. So right now in this digital era, in this current dispensation, ads are everywhere. Ads are everywhere today, thanks in part due to digital platforms, social medias, and advertisement is so powerful in shaping ideology. All right. And we can associate products with social ideals like beauty, success, wealth, and masculinity or femininity through advertising. Product placement is one example of advertising or marketing, wherein a company or a brand gonna feature their products into into a TV or into a commercial as that. Uh, One example to illustrate this is perfume ads might reinforce the gender stereotype, while cars ad might promote individualism and status or masculinity because men love car or pink is associated with what female gender. You get me? So ads also help to construct and normalize consumerist ideology by linking identity with consumption. One example of this is a Super Bowl beer commercial often shows a group of male friends bonding over drinks, um, reinforcing the ideas of masculinity, leisure, and camaraderie tied to consumption. This is one example which illustrates the powerful ways that advertisement can reflect, reinforce, produce, and elevate ideologies. Moving on, I would like to also talk about how the internet promotes ideologies and influence people's worldview. The internet, especially social media, accelerates the spread of ideology by allowing individuals and organizations to share content widely and instantaneously, like I mentioned in my other presentation yesterday. We have algorithms used by these social media platforms They tailor contents to users' experience, to users' beliefs, often creating echo chamber that reinforce those views. While the internet can challenge dominant narratives, it can also contribute to polarization and the rapid dissemination of misinformation and extremist ideologies. We saw this in 2017. There were good people on both sides, and that was shared on Twitter millions of times, if not billions of views. So, one cogent example of this concept is YouTube's algorithm may lead a user from watching fitness video to radical self-improvement influences, which can eventually expose them to toxic masculinity or extreme content, showing the internet can shape ideology in subtle and powerful way. The Andrew Tates of the world, one example. To also move, I would like to conclude this presentation by saying, by re-echoing that if we critically analyze media content and understand the ideological messages that are embedded within them, it will be important for us individuals to become more capable of questioning the systems and narrative that shape our worldview. So it is very important because media messages have propaganda. Media messages have an agenda. Media messages have ideologies, and it is incumbent upon every individual in society to encode and decode or interpret those messages for himself or herself. This is my works cited page. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I'm Isaiah Kuya. Thank you.